The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsnyder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You're listening to the PA Power Podcast. I'm Jeff Upson, joined by Eric Knopsnyder, and on this week's episode, we're going to talk with Wyoming Seminary head coach Scott Green. We're going to discuss his season and what he's looking forward to. We're also going to talk a lot about our top incoming freshman report. It's a report that we just came out with. Very, very daunting task, and I'm glad it's over. But we'll mention some of the top incoming freshmen that we're going to be seeing here in Pennsylvania.
All right, Jeff, just first off, tell us all the work that you put into this. I mean, when do you start working on your top incoming freshman report?
A very, very long time ago, it seems like. This year especially. I think maybe because our trip to Macon, France for the Junior Worlds maybe took a lot of precedent and a lot of time away from the top incoming freshman. But I normally start this in February of the wrestling season. So, for example, this February 2017, I'll start compiling a list of the top incoming freshmen. The one very difficult part of the top incoming freshman is figuring out, number one, where that wrestler is going to be going to high school. Two, whether they're going to be in ninth grade or not, because there's obviously it's hard to tell sometimes if the kid's only going to be in eighth grade or maybe they're going to be in 10th grade, not ninth grade. So figuring out where they're going to high school and really what year they are, I want to make sure I get it right, if that makes sense.
How do you get information on all this? Because if you look at this, I mean, it's incredible. Some of these guys, you have 30 results listed for them, what they've done in Super 32, what they've done in Flow Nationals and Journeyman, in freestyle. You've got all these results. How do you compile all of this stuff that you come up with?
Well, being that it's the fifth year that I've done it, I've gotten a good system down where I just comb through results one at a time, and I'll go through and the names. I compile a database with the names, and then I'll put the finish that they came through. So, for example, if I'm looking at the PJWs from 2010, I just go through the entire PJW tournament, grab the names, and then put the results, and then I go through it that way. And obviously, the tournaments I like to hit on big time are obviously the PJW state tournament, but also the MAWA Eastern Nationals, the McDonough Duels, Super 32, Flow Nationals, Tulsa Nationals, just a big Ohio Tournament of Champions. These are the big name premier youth events that go on around the nation. So I'm fortunate that in today's day and age, everything's basically online. The results are, so it's not difficult to go through, and I mean, it's very time consuming to go through it and look at every result. And I don't really have a life, Eric. So
now, are you getting feedback from parents, from kids? I mean, are they sending you info and saying, "Hey, look, my kid did this. This is why he should be up here," or Do you hear much from the families?
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, I started to do an inquiry system where you could fill out and say who you felt should be on the top incoming freshman. Because I mean, I'm one person with only one pair of eyes, so I can't see it all and grab all the information. So the idea was to have others. People that are involved in the sport, parents, coaches, fans, give me an idea of who they thought should be on the list. And what I do is I allow them to give a name, their high school, projected weight, and then some credentials. So whether that's 5-time PJW state champion or Lock Haven Fall Classic champion, they can go through and sort of I've put that information on others to give some details of how those wrestlers are, and it also gives me an opportunity to make connections with parents, so I can say, hey, is so and so going to be in ninth grade, and what high school are they going to be at? Because in today's day and age, I mean, kids they may just be going to different high schools. They may see an opportunity. The families move. So I several wrestlers that I initially had on the list had moved out of state. Now, some wrestlers are on here that are prep schools, and that they'll go to these prep schools. Like, for example, Ryan Miller's going to Blair Academy. A couple guys from Chambersburg, Jack Wimmer, they'll be going to McDonough School in Maryland. So it's a very in-depth look. It's probably too in-depth for this level. And I've been told that I probably spend a whole lot of time looking at results from junior wrestling. That in the end, what does it really mean? Well, to me, it means something, because you put in all that work as a youth wrestler. I remember when I started wrestling when I was 9. You put in a lot of work, and you see win all these results, you win all these tournaments, and you never really get credit for it like the high school kids do. So I think it's a good way, a good barometer, if you will, to gauge the temperature of Pennsylvania wrestling.
Well, and I think it is really popular. I mean, from what I've heard, I think this is probably one of the biggest things we do at PA Power Wrestling in terms of it gives people something that they might not know. I mean, you can find other rankings, of course you want ours, but, you can find different things, team rankings, individual rankings for high school kids, all that stuff. But I mean, there's nothing else out there like this that is this complete, that is this in-depth of a look of the guys that are going to be making an impact that you might not know about yet.
Yeah, and from a fan standpoint, I mean, it's a nice cheat sheet to say, okay, I heard of this guy before, so when that freshman upsets at senior, you can come back and say, oh wait, well, he was number 12 on the top incoming freshman. He was projected to be a PA state qualifier. So you can come back and say, yeah, I can see where, looking at the credentials, because some of these kids, I mean, have credentials, very, very prestigious credentials, such as, championships from all kinds of tournaments. So, on the youth circuit, they may be well known, but when you come into high school, some fans only focus on the high school aspect of it, or college. And this is just to get those youth wrestlers from Pennsylvania that have worked so hard, the recognition that I feel that they deserve.
Well, and it gives you an idea also of teams that might be on the rise. A team that might have been good last year, but gets an influx of some really talented freshmen, and it can kind of push them over that hump for this year. So it gives you an idea of the team race as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing we're going to talk to Coach Scott Green about from Wyoming Seminary. He's got 5 Wyoming Seminary wrestlers on this list that are going to be top incoming freshmen, and that's only from Pennsylvania. These are only guys that actually live in Pennsylvania or grew up in Pennsylvania, not to mention guys that come in from out of state. So, and you look at a team like Bethlehem Catholic, they got 4 on this list. Cathedral Prep's got 5. Southern Columbia's got 4. I mean, Southern Columbia's, I would argue, it really is going to make a push this year in AA for the talent that they have. And you look at Cathedral Prep. Last year, Cathedral Prep had 2 PIAA state medalists that were freshmen, and now they're going to have several others on that list to fill in. So, the Ramblers, I think, are on the rise in that sense. So it does give you an outlook to say, okay, this is what the team race is going to shape out to look like, just based on these freshmen that are going to make an impact.
Now, I understand now how difficult it is logistically just to pull all this together. What about the other side of it? How hard is it to sit down and try to quantify and say, okay, this guy belongs above this guy because of this?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the ranking system, I mean, I think, and that's why I include so many honorable mentions, because it's so hard to do a pound for pound for on the state level for freshmen. Now, our number 1 is Bo Bartlett from Wyoming Seminary. He was a clear number 1, in my opinion, just based on his results on a national level and what he's been able to accomplish just before he was even in high school. But then you have a guy like Sammy Hilgis from North Hills, who arguably could be, any other day who'd be the number 1 guy if it wasn't for Bo. So it's just like, a couple years ago we had Gavin Teasdale as the number 1 and Sammy Sasso as number 2. So, obviously a lot of talent.
Looking at it, I also like that you break down by districts, how many each district has in the list. any surprises there? Anything that you looked at at the end of it and said, wow, I didn't realize this district had this many, or that this one really is kind of barren this year?
Well, I mean, we always we look at the Whitfield in District 7, and we see that, obviously they have 21 on the list that leads it. But you look at a district like District 10, they've got 9, and District 6 has 9. That's a lot for a district as small as those are. That's a lot of top talent to be in those areas. And then you look at District 4 with 9. A lot of that has to do with Southern Columbia. So I'm really excited to see how Southern Columbia pans out and how they're because they already have a lot of talent to begin with. But now they're gonna have really one of the best upper weights in Gage Garcia, who is just phenomenal, both on and off the mat. He's currently playing football for Southern Columbia state champions, and doing really well for them. So as soon as he gets into form for wrestling, watch out for this guy. And his dad, Mike Garcia, was a 3-time state champion from Mount Carmel. So clearly he knows what it's about. So, yeah, it's nothing really surprised me, just because it was information that I had been digesting. I guess I'd like to pose that question to the average fan who's just now looking at it for the first time at what sticks out to them as jumping off the page.
As far as you going back to Gage Garcia for a moment, you talked about his football. Do you look at anything else? Do you look at overall athleticism, somebody like that's a football star as well? Or do you look at guys that are just wrestling focused and say, okay, this guy is living wrestling year round, he gets a little bump, or is it just results? I mean, I'm interested in the whole process of the ranking system.
Well, I mean, it comes down to a variety of factors, if you will, and this is sort of how I strive for the rankings at PA Power Wrestling to be like. There's a variety of factors. There's the element of, okay, your results head to head. But also, grinding out tournaments. If you lose the first match and you come back to win 6 in the wrestlebacks, that makes you a little bit, okay, yeah, you may have lost the first match, but you came back and won 6 straight. Oh, and by the way, the guy who knocked you out, you came back to defeat him. So that plays a big factor into it. The travel, obviously some wrestlers are not going to be able to go around the entire country and go to Tulsa and go to Reno Worlds. So I don't like to discredit wrestlers who only can do the local tournament. So a lot of head-to-head, but in youth wrestling, your weight changes so much. You may have wrestled a guy in 2010 and beat him, and then 5 years later you're up to 160 pounds and they're still down at 120. So how does that really rank? But a guy, guys that wrestle year round, for example, Andrew Sinigla from Nazareth area, he just committed to really wrestling full time year round in the last 2 years or so. A guy like Jonathan Myers from Easton, he's a 3-sport athlete. He plays lacrosse. He wrestles, and that's a lot of things to go into an student athlete at that age. So. I do try to look at strictly wrestling abilities and how I think they'll fare. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, you can take the top 20, and they're all going to, I think, in my opinion, going to be successful. Whether they all finish as state qualifiers or not, I think they're all going to be successful wherever they end in the season.
Well, Jeff, just a phenomenal job again. I know I don't give you too many pats on the back, but this is one that even before I was affiliated with PA Power Wrestling, I know I looked forward to, and so many other people out there do. So glad to have it out, and just a great resource to head into the season with.
Yeah, it's a big weight off of my shoulders, just finally getting this out. I mean, just the formatting, getting the pictures of all the wrestlers, and I normally every year and this year was not exempt. I always put the wrong picture of one wrestler up, and this year it was Luca Lucerin from Council Rock North. I accidentally put Brandon Meredith from Springford, who's a junior this year. I put his picture up instead. So just the logistics, all the behind the scenes stuff that we don't really get to see. It's a lot to do, and But I'm really glad it's over because now I can focus on other avenues in promoting wrestling. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. And we're really looking forward to seeing how these freshmen how they do this year in 2016, 2017.
And it won't be long, Jeff. Just a couple weeks away, we're going to be getting ready for the season to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this would be a nice time to segue into our guest, Scott Green from Wyoming Seminary, because Wyoming Seminary, they get started a little bit earlier than most on the national prep scene. And, I look forward to talking to Scott about just the schedule that they have, because it's a really daunting one, and competing with those top teams like Blair, Bergen Catholic, and they are going to wrestle Becca this year and Bishop McCourt. So a little bit closer to our neck of the woods. But really looking forward to seeing how he feels about these top incoming freshmen. Obviously, he has the top one on the list in Bo Bartlett. So nice time to talk to him. Special guest now from Wyoming Seminary head coach Scott Green. Coach, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How's it going, guys?
We're doing good, and looking forward to chatting with you about the Sem wrestling team that's coming into this season. First of all, we want to talk about the top incoming freshmen. It's a report that we put out every year, and Wyoming Seminary's notoriously had a lot of guys on that list, but this year especially, just a ton of talent with the freshman class, led by Bo Bartlett from Wyoming Seminary. So could you just go around and just talk a little bit about Bo and what you really like about him?
Yeah, well, first, great job on that report. I look forward to it coming out every year. You guys are so in depth with that. It's great service you provide into the Pennsylvania wrestling community. And yeah, we got a little bit of a youth movement going on up here in Kingston, and we're switching gears a little bit, graduating a bunch of kids that were 3-4 years, some of the top kids in the country. But now we've got a bunch of young guys, and Bo Bartlett is going to be maybe the centerpiece of that movement. He's ready. He's, through our rules, been able to garner some varsity experience already and proven that he's among the top guys in the country. And now he gets to do it every weekend on our schedule, go out and show that he can compete with anybody in the country, which we feel that he can.
And Coach, you had mentioned it when we were looking through the roster previously, and we were thinking, wow, you really did lose a lot of seniors there, a lot of tough
14 guys.
14
yeah.
guys. I mean, that's just incredible for you to come back and replenish that. But you got a lot of young guys too, a lot of guys that made some off-season noise. I really, Jack Davis and Hendricks there, they're just really performed well in the offseason and really showed their ability. So what do you like about this really young team for Sem?
Well, I think we get back to developing some talent. Last year you had guys that were a bunch of them were in the top 5, top 10 in the weight class in the country. And for a lot of them, they had done the hard work and were just getting tuned up for some important matches and getting ready to go. And the practice room was a little bit different. Very, very college room atmosphere last year. Now we're back to getting some younger kids in there, and, they're going to be good. Some of them are going to be great, but there's a lot of teaching going on, and there's a lot of kids that are really kind of soaking up some of the technique and some of the knowledge that we're trying to put out there, and it's exciting.
Coach, when you've got such a deep and talented team, is it a challenge just looking at the top? We had 5 guys in the top incoming freshmen for Wyoming Seminary. Is it a challenge to try to get everybody in the lineup and just keep everybody motivated when you have such a deep team?
Absolutely. And buying in is essential. We tell kids before they leave campus, when they visit it or when they're thinking about coming there, that, look, you're going to wrestle on a team that's perennially ranked in the top 5, top 10 in the country. You might not get into our lineup for a year or two, and you have to be coming here for the right reasons, and that includes academics, and that includes all the things that make Wyoming Seminary. That's more than just wrestling. So some guys, that's an easy sell because they feel real confident that they're going to come in and get better wrestling alongside some of the best guys in the room. And other guys, it's just not the right fit, and they want to start for 4 years But we feel like most of the guys that come see themselves as guys that are going to get better in their situation, and being here and maybe sacrificing a year where they will be the starter is worth it in the long run. I mean, there's no question our B team wrestles a super competitive schedule as well, so they're not really missing that much being on our B team. We give everybody opportunities to compete, but a lot of guys want to be the guy, and you got to keep pushing towards that.
And Coach, some of those guys that we saw, sort of having to wait their turn to come up, but really do well. Carter Tootle this offseason had a pretty good offseason. So guys like that, what's the outlook? For a guy who gets to be on the B team, but still gets that competition, and then boom, they're right into the starting lineup. How do you make that transition for them?
It's patience, a perfect example is Patrick Munn from last year, who didn't start till he was a senior, and then wound up winning prep nationals. But he stuck with it, and he believed in it, and he went to Fargo, and he went to Virginia Beach, and he didn't look at his entire season as one or two events where he might not have been the guy. And a prep national title and, headed to UPenn, that's a pretty good payoff. Sure. So a kid like Carter is also a great example. He's banged up a little bit last year. He didn't get into our lineup, but he kept on plugging away. And, the next thing you know, he's on center stage wrestling for a Fargo title. So he believed all the way through that was a possibility. And he got better by wrestling the Jack Davises and the Bo Bartletts and the Jake Regals of the world in our wrestling room. Trent Olson, who just graduated. And he took that grind, and it just finally paid off for him in Fargo, and now he's back looking to do it again.
Now you're coming up the start of the season pretty soon, and you start the season a little bit sooner than most. I would say, like in the PIAA, you have the Sem Duels on the 3rd of December. Who's all going to be at the Sem Duels this year?
Our feature event is going to be St. Anthony's, which is a pretty good school out of Long Island.
Right.
They've been there for the last 2 years, and then we're going to have a couple of teams in scrimmage because the PIAA official season doesn't kick off till the next week. So we'll see some kids from Scranton, Benton, the local area there as well. So it's kind of reshaped the event a little bit, the PIAA changing their start date. But we're okay with that. We're just ready to get a little back time, get a little warm-up before the Ironman and things like that.
Yeah, and then as you said before, your schedule, just you guys are hitting the top events. You get the Ironman, you got Powerade, just going everywhere and kind of wrestling everybody. Yep. Is that how you look at it, that you prepare yourselves for the postseason by seeing all that great competition during the regular season?
We're especially wanting to get a lot of great matches early. Our philosophy is to really kind of beat the guys up a little bit, get them out there, fighting through it and getting calloused up a little bit in December, early January. So they've been through that tough part at that point. We back off a little bit in January. We're still, we've got the Eastern states on our schedule, and we've got some key dual meets with some of our natural rivals. Blair, Bergen Catholic has kind of stepped into that role. We're wrestling Becca in a duel this year. But we want our guys in January to be going out there every week and competing, but it's certainly not as hard and as difficult as our December schedule, because we want them to be ready for February. We want them to put their best performance of the year out there at prep states and prep nationals, and then the peak at that time.
Yeah, and Coach Green, I just circled a lot of duels in January that just really piqued my interest. Obviously, like you said, Blair on the 13th of January, but closer to home in the PIAA for us is Becca, who is returning state dual team champions from Pennsylvania. A lot of talent there on the 26th of January. So what is it? What's the outlook for you as a coach? And you obviously want to win the Ironman, the Powerade, but when it comes to the dual meets, how do you get those guys motivated to come out from that team aspect, other than the individual, to come out and say, hey, we're gonna win these dual meets as a team?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is we have to be kind of stewards of our own sport here. And there's really nothing that ignites a community's passion or pride in their school than a standalone dual meet. So we've really kind of committed to trying to get a lot of those on our schedule because we think if we're going to grow the sport, we're going to do it with people coming in and watching a showcase duel like that. We're not going to get non-wrestling fans to travel and sit in the stands for 16 hours. I mean, three of us love that.
Right, sure.
We do it every weekend. But if we're ever going to be more than we are now, we need more fans. And we can't rely on other people to do it. We have to do it ourselves. So I think that's the best way to showcase the talent that we have. I might have picked the wrong year to do it with such a young team. But I think that's the thing going forward. If you've been at our Blair duel at their place last year and then at our place the year before, everyone that walks out of that gym is a wrestling fan, you know? And I can't say that about everybody who walks out of our 2-day Excalibur tournament or something like that. So I think from a perspective of being stewards of the sport, of being ambassadors of what we're trying to do with wrestling, that standalone duels are crucial to our future. And as long as other coaches are willing to do a home and home with me, we're excited about doing them every year. And we've got a lot of good response from coaches.
And Coach, I think you speak absolutely hit the nail on the head there. Sort of going back to the roots, and my father always used to say, pack the gyms with for the dual meets. And today, in today's day and age, we see less of the emphasis on those individual duels. So I respect your decision to go out there and find that best talent and go head to head, toe to toe with those top talent guys, because like you said, that's if our goal is to grow wrestling and reach those fans outside of the diehards, and we got to maybe go back to that dual meet format. So we really look forward to seeing some of those dual meets coming up this season. Yeah,
we're looking forward to them too.
Now, Coach, going back to some of those freshmen that we had talked about, like I said, there was 5 on the list that came in from the top incoming freshmen and that's only from Pennsylvania. Bo and Connor Keevan, he's one of the guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing how he transitions into high school. He's been on the youth scene for just so long. I mean, he's always been one of the top guys, and a lot of expectations on a young kid's shoulder, 14, 15-year-old kid. So how do you deal with that as a coach of say, hey, you're ready to be here. This is where you belong, and you're one of those top guys.
I've worked with Connor for a couple of years through our club and through national teams and things like that. And you're right. I mean, there are a tremendous amount of expectations on it. And when you're making the decision to come to SEM, I think the first thing that I had to do is take those expectations off directly. Is listen, you're going to come here. It's going to be a transition. Living away from home, your freshman year is not going to define you. If you're going to base it on that, then don't come. But if you come here, we're going to develop you. We're going to make sure that you're going the right weight. We're going to take some of the emphasis off of cutting weight and things like that. And we're going to get you better at wrestling, because that's what the focus needs to be. And of any kid on campus, he's the one who's bought into that the most. He has pretty close to a 4.0 GPA. And he's the kid in the room every day that's in there trying to get better. He wrestled off Jack Davis, and it's a little bit of a physical mismatch at this point, but he never quit. He fought hard. He winds up throwing him in a headlock for a 5-point move. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, I can compete with those guys. And if he continues to have that attitude going forward, it's going to get better every day. And then all of a sudden at the end of the year, it's a different kid. And he's really embraced that philosophy. And I'm so thrilled to have him here.
When you talk about ending that season, obviously with the national preps, you guys won it in 2014. And that was the first year ever, correct, that Blair had not won the national prep championship?
33 years. I mean, if you go back into the 1940s and 50s, we've got banners on our wall from winning national press, but certainly in the modern era.
So
a
pretty big feat for you and the SEM program. What's it going to take to get SEM back on top of that national prep level? I know, like we talked about, it's a very young team, but is this something you see down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's it going to take? It's going to take us beating the best team in the country to be the best team in the country. It's not anything that we're ever going to really back into. We know every year that we're going to have to compete with, and I'm not trying to use hyperbole here, but I think they're the best team, bar no other sport in the country. Blair Wrestling is. If you look at the history, the tradition, and the support there, it's tough to find another high school program in any sport that can compete with what they've done. So we know that. We know that walking in the door every day, that's what we're going to have to do. And it's going to take 36 guys on our roster working towards it and realizing, hey, we might come up short this year, but we've got the young talent in the room, and if we keep going forward and take a long-range view, we're going to be back on top soon. But it's, we wouldn't want it any other way. We wouldn't want to have to beat, so-and-so or this team or that team. We want to beat the best, because that truly kind of shows that you've done something special, and our guys think about that every time they walk into the room.
Now, Coach, obviously your job entails so much more than just sitting on the sidelines and giving instructions. You really have to be just a caregiver. When we talk to Brandon Slay and some of these top coaches, they're saying, look, we're preparing people for life. How do you manage at SEM just to keep guys motivated, both academically, socially, and obviously on the mat? How are you able to balance all of that throughout the season?
Well, I don't sleep all that much. No, I think what we're fortunate to have here is a strong community, whether it be wrestling or the Wyoming Seminary community as a whole. This is a school that's been in existence since 1844. It's been boarding kids for decades. So, a lot of kids that are having trouble managing their life or things like that, they just got to look down their room and see kids that are here from overseas, trying to make their way, in the world and figure out things. And it becomes a little less intimidating when your roommate's from China, and you know that he's not going to go home and see his parents for maybe the whole year. So kids get that world view, and they figure out, hey, I can do this. Other people are doing it. The community is going to support me. The coaching staff's going to support me. My peers are going to support me. And life becomes a little bit more manageable. I mean, we tell kids, don't come here to wrestle. Come here with the intention of transforming your life into something that it wasn't before you came. And they're truly provided with the opportunity to do that. Our dorm parents are great. Everybody that's part of the SEM community is committed to these kids' growth. And wrestling's just a small part of that. But they buy into that philosophy, and it's a really unique chance for them.
Coach, I would imagine that you probably have some challenges that public school coaches don't, in that I'm sure that, these kids, especially the younger kids, they go away from home for the first time for an extended time like this. I'm sure there's some homesickness,
Sure.
Are there other things like that you're dealing with, of trying to, mentor these kids in a way that someone living at home might not have to?
No doubt. Everybody has unique challenges in their own situation, but the perfect example is right now our kids are just finished up finals, so they're home, while everyone else is gearing up for the season. My boarders are gone for 10 days. We had practice this morning, and we had 6 kids there that all live locally. So I get them back as a team Sunday night. We have a dual meet Tuesday. So all of a sudden, you have a kid who's going to make weight, and he goes home, and you're not on him like you would be during the regular season, and he comes back and he's 14 pounds over. Well, we got a problem, So that's unique, is these deep breaks that happen within our season. You're not going to tell a kid, no, you're staying here. You got to go home and see your family. That's obvious. But you lose them for protracted periods of time where you can't keep as close of an eye on them. And then, sure, there's always kids that you're worried about they're managing their own life for the first time, and that can be intimidating. But we kind of just rely on our institution to provide as much support as we can in that regard.
And most of your guys that have gone on to do great things, and it really obviously pushes that academics. I mean, you guys are sending people to school, just some of the top colleges, Ivy League colleges. How do you feel like just by going through that process maybe prepares them a little bit better for that college atmosphere?
Yeah, for sure. They're surrounded by kids who don't know anything about wrestling but are passionate about, whatever it is that they are passionate about, academics or, anything. And so it's a super competitive atmosphere on campus. And we try to tell them that, more than anything else that you do here, your job is to use your skill in wrestling as a vessel, a vehicle to get into a college that you might not normally get into. And recognize when you get there that you're going to have to use that determination and grit that you learn through the sport of wrestling to make it academically. So, that kind of wrestling as a conduit for what you're going to do later in life is really the key here. People aren't going to remember what you placed in prep nationals your sophomore year 20 years from now, but they're going to know you had a degree from Columbia or UPenn or NYU or a school like that are some of the most sought after schools for all kids in the country. And if we can use wrestling to close that gap and help you, that's the key.
Coach, when we talk about Pennsylvania wrestling, Pennsylvania tradition, Wyoming Seminary is in one of those unique positions where there's a lot of tradition, a lot of history there in the area, in and around Kingston. Teams like 40 Fort High School just absolutely dominated back in the day. And when you have these kids, and a lot of them obviously are not all from Pennsylvania, but they all come in, they all get a taste of Pennsylvania wrestling. Would you agree with that?
Totally, yeah. Some kids come here because of that, they're in a school or a state where they're super talented, but they know that they're never going to test themselves against the best kids. So you get them here, and a lot of our West Coast kids are like, look, I can take anybody in the country down, but I wrestle a tough kid from PA. I can't get off the bottom. We got to learn that, because that's part of folk style and college. So the style's different, and they really are anxious to compete against kids like that. And then, this area, you get some guys, like you said, 44 High School, Kingston High School, Pittston. These guys are in their 50s and 60s, and some of them in their 70s. They're coming to every match, and talking to the kids because they love good wrestling. And so they really get a sense of tradition here that they might not get at home.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us today. We're looking forward to seeing you at multiple events this year, especially Ironman and the Powerade tournament. I love to see the SEM guys at Powerade going against some of the best WPIAL guys and Pennsylvania national guys. So it's just really
absolutely.
It's a really fun tournament. I love that atmosphere. So. And again, we appreciate all that you do for wrestling, the sport in general, and appreciate you taking the time out to join us on the PA Power podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Hey, take care.
Yep. Again, just a big shout out to Scott Green, the coach at Wyoming Seminary, for taking the time out to join us and really opening up about how the inner workings of Wyoming Seminary works and how they're able to be so successful and how he operates as not only a coach but just a caregiver, if you will, of these young men. So really looking forward to seeing how they compete this year.
Absolutely. The prep scene is a little bit new to me. I haven't really been into it too much. So some of those questions and his answers were a little bit of insight for me just to what the whole situation is like at a prep school.
Right, and absolutely, and I think it's good to have that insight because at the end of the day, I mean, Wyoming Seminary represents Pennsylvania wrestling, and there's a lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers on that lineup, it's nice to know how it all works. So we look forward to seeing him and wish the Sem guys the best of luck this year. Switching gears a little bit, when we talk about guys getting ready for college, there was quite a few commitments that were made in the last week or so for some of the top guys. And one of them is Travis Stefanik from Nazareth area. He was a PIAA third last year for Nazareth. He's number 15 ranked in the class of 2017. He's going to be heading to Princeton. So a very top-tiered school, and we just had Brett Harner on the podcast a few weeks ago talking about balancing out that athletic and academic. So Travis is going to be heading to Princeton, just another Ivy Leaguer from Nazareth.
Yeah, when you can go there and get that kind of an education to go along with the wrestling, I mean, congrats to Travis. Just a phenomenal place to go and wrestle and get an education.
Yeah, and Nazareth's going to be one of those schools this year that's going to be pushing for that top spot. So, we will be coming out with some preseason dual team rankings here in a little bit, and Nazareth is definitely making a statement and a case to be the top team. But looking at some other names that committed, number 21, Jimmy Hoffman from Hazleton. He was a state runner-up last year as a junior. He'll be going to Lehigh. I really like the way he wrestles, and we got to see him down at Super 32 grind out some matches, so I'm excited to see how he does this year as a senior. Sammy Hepler from Tri-Valley will be going to Lock Haven, so Scott Moore again gets some quality talent from Pennsylvania. He's number 38 on the class of 2017. Sammy's he beat Brian Courtney over this offseason, so clearly we know where he stands.
Yeah, definitely a guy that is right there in the mix with some of the best guys in the state and in the country for that matter.
Number 47, Joey Bloomer from Kiscari is going to Penn State. This is a great pickup, in my opinion, for Coach Sanderson and the Penn State and Indy Lions. I love Joey Bloomer, the way he wrestles. He's almost Jason Nolf-like in the way he scrambles. I don't know if you saw over the weekend Jason Nolf, that matrix breaking he did when he was getting taken down, and just incredible. So Joey's he's a little bit underrated. He's a PIAA state medalist, but he's got a lot of upside, in my opinion, for a wrestler of his caliber. I love the way he wrestles at Super 32. He grinded out, I think, six wrestleback wins in the wrestlebacks. He beat John Pippa from Bish McDevitt. So kid's a really good wrestler, and I think he has a lot of upside. I think he's going to prove to be a very good college wrestler. He's very good on top, and he loves to scramble. Well,
and sort of what Coach Green was talking about from Wyoming Seminary, whenever you're looking at a guy like that he can go into the Penn State room, and as long as the expectations aren't there that, hey, I'm going to step in and start right away, anything like that, the experience you can get in that room wrestling with those guys at Penn State, I mean, you can improve so much that it's great for a guy like that, as long as you have the right mindset going in there to go ahead and work and get better and have that opportunity maybe a couple years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that. Obviously, I don't think Joey's going to come in and start right away for the Division I national champions, but having that ability to wrestle in the room with those top guys, who's to say his sophomore, junior, senior year he doesn't break onto the lineup and really compete well for this program. So, I mean, you look at a guy like Gino Morelli from DuBois who transferred from Pitt. Penn State now starting. So, I mean, he wasn't a huge name. He was a very good wrestler in high school, but now he's in the lineup.
It'll be interesting. You're talking about Morelli with his loss to Rashid over the weekend. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes up. If he's still the starter there, how things work out.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that pans out for Cale Sanderson. Obviously, that's a good problem to have with two guys that are neck and neck. So I'm sure both of them will end up getting a lot of mat time this year.
Of course, it was an 11-minute match, so not a whole lot to distinguish between the two there.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll talk a little bit more about this college results in a second here. So, just some other guys that committed.
Christian Hutzel is a guy from my neck of the woods, Myersdale, District 5. Kind of came out of nowhere really last year. He didn't win a District 5 title, didn't win a regional title, but ended up placing at states. Was really a pinning machine. I can't remember the exact number, but I think his coach told me he pinned like 8 guys in a banana split last year, including several at the state tournament. So, it's not usually a move that you think that you can get the top guys in, but he was really able to do it and put things together at the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see how he can do this year, if he can build on that and continue to improve.
Yeah, he comes in at number 62, and he'll be going to UPJ. Tyler Alberts from Elwood City comes in at number 108. He'll be going to Wheeling Jesuit. Luke Landefeld from North Allegheny is 135 in the list. He's going to Seton Hill. So a lot of North Allegheny Tigers end up going over there to Seton Hill in Westmoreland County. And Jacob Dunlop from Bell Vernon originally had committed to Pitt, but he'll be going to Gannon. He comes in at number 144. I think that's probably a better fit for him. He's a little undersized, so I think Gannon will probably be a little bit of a better fit for him, and I think he'll find success there.
You brought up North Allegheny. Some interesting news coming out of there over the weekend, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was able to talk to Eric Hong's father a couple days ago about the situation. So Eric Hong is now going to be at North Allegheny. He's enrolled, and he'll be competing for North Allegheny this year. He had spent the last year at Kiski Prep, and then the 2 years before that, he was at Georgetown Prep in Maryland. He's a national prep champion. He's been one of the top guys in Pennsylvania for a very long time. He grew up wrestling with Vincenzo Joseph, Gavin Teasdale, Spencer Lee, those guys, and he's just really had a tremendous high school career.
Yeah, you have him, I believe, number 14 on the top seniors list?
Yeah, and he had originally committed to Penn, but he's now reopening his search here. So he comes in with a 107-12 record career-wise. He was a national prep champion his freshman year, was second his sophomore year, and then did not place last year. So I'm excited to see how he can compete in the PIAA. So, obviously it's a little bit different than when we talked with Scott Green about with the PIAA and Wyoming Seminary, but it's going to be interesting to see how Hong can transition to a public school schedule, because North Allegheny they don't have an easy schedule.
No, and I honestly I think Eric Hong is going to be very good there. I really like him, what he's been able to do. I know last year didn't go quite the way he wanted to at the national prep tournament, but I think he's going to step in and do really big things there and really be huge for North Allegheny in terms of what they can accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, on the team scene, they're going to be one of the top. They were already going to be one of the top teams in the state before Eric Hong came in. So now this just bolsters that lineup, that middleweight lineup. He'll probably be around 160, I would say. Last year he was an Escape the Rock runner-up. He lost to Jared Verclear, and so they did some battles back and forth. And Sonny Abe is a coach that has been involved in his life since he was a little tyke. I mean, he was a little kid. Him and Chenzo Joseph both grew up wrestling for Sonny Abe. So I think this is a good fit for him. On a personal level and both academically and athletically, I think Eric's a very bright young kid, and I think his family's doing what's best for him in terms of academics and athletics. He's originally from the Oakmont area of Pittsburgh, so that's where his family is, and it's one of those things where he could come in and make a big difference for that North Allegheny team.
And it'll be really interesting as well to see how the recruiting process being opened back up works for him now. He had that commitment to Penn, and now he's looking to get other offers, and I'm sure there are tons of those that will be coming in, and we'll look forward to seeing in the next couple of weeks and months what he decides in terms of his college choice.
Right. I mean, this is a kid that was a 5-time PJW state champion, so he was one of our top incoming freshmen and years ago, and now it's coming full circle here. So I'm excited to see how he can end his career in the Giant Center. So yeah, and another move that will be taking place is in District 1. Ryan Vulka from North Penn will be going to Pope John Paul II down in Royersford, Pennsylvania. That's District 1, AAA. He was a state medalist his freshman year and will be going over to Pope John. He head coach is Tom Hauntz there, and assistant Chris Sheets. I'm sure you remember Chris Sheets from Upper Perk. He was headlock master and very, very talented wrestler. So that's another move that we'll keep an eye on, and it obviously doesn't have the team implications like Eric Hong does, but still a talented wrestler that's going to be at a different program this year.
And that's one of the challenges. I know people have asked us about when we're going to be getting the individual rankings out, and sort of what you were talking about with the top incoming freshmen. It's just really tough to gather all the information, as make sure kids haven't changed schools as far as weights goes, things like that. There's a lot of prep work that kind of goes into it that first one of the year.
Oh, big time. It's trying to figure out where guys are going, if they're moving up, how far they're going up, and things of that nature. So, yeah, it's a whole lot of work to be put into it. So we want to make sure we get it right. Switching gears a little bit to the college scene, a lot of open tournaments took place over the weekend. Some big names from Pennsylvania competed. The Keystone Classic was one of those, and obviously being held in Philadelphia at UPenn. A lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers were there. A lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers competed in it and did well. The one weight that I was very much looking forward to was 165 pounds, where Vincenzo Joseph, the state champ from Central Catholic, 2-time state champ, he competed in the finals against Tashan Campbell from Pitt, they were both a pair of 2015 PIAA state champions, Chenzo at 52 and Campbell at 70. So that was a big-time matchup in the finals there. Joseph won 9-5. But in the semifinals, Joseph took out Chad Walsh from Ryder, who was an All-American last year. So here's a redshirt freshman who comes in and defeats a returning All-American and then wins the tournament.
Yeah, as far as Vincenzo goes, it'll be great to see how he does this year. I know there's been a lot of talk about him because he didn't have a whole lot of results to look at from last year, from his redshirt year. So he's a little bit of a mystery as far as how he's adapted to the college ranks. But obviously from this past weekend, you can see that he's going to do just fine there in that Penn State lineup.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does. He was 1-1 coming into the season. He won at Army and lost at Stanford, but he clearly is able to beat some of the best guys. And I think just peaking at the right time and getting his weight to where he wants it to be. But in other areas of the Keystone Classic, just the normal dominance and just complete utter. Just running through guys, Zane Rutherford and Jason Nolf. I mean, they're on two different levels. They're on another planet.
Yeah, definitely. They're so much fun to watch. I mean, for me, I love to see those guys that go out there and just want to dominate, instead of going out and winning a 2-1, a 3-2 match, something like that. They're just going out to score points and pin people and end the match as quickly as possible.
We are very fortunate to have two wrestlers like Zane Rutherford and Jason Nolf from Pennsylvania and get to watch them compete in college because, I mean, Jason Nolf is just he's the way he wrestles, how aggressive he is, and like I said, that one takedown where he was giving up a takedown and was able to do almost like a somersault roll into a takedown to tech fall his opponent. I mean, just really impressive and really fun to watch.
Well, it's so amazing because for a split second there, you think that Nolf is human, and then he does something completely inhuman.
Right. And I think Willie Saylor said he broke the matrix, which is true. So, looking back at some of the results, Dom Forays from North Allegheny, who's at Pitt, he was a NCAA qualifier last year. He won the 133-pound weight class. Evan Fidelibus from Easton area, who's now at Ryder, he had a pretty good showing and finished third at 141. The surprising result here was Jimmy Goulabon not finishing in the top 6.
with Jimmy, it just seems like you don't know what you're going to get from match to match and week to week. I mean, he's shown flashes in college of how great he was in high school and what you thought he was going to develop into. But then there have also been those frustrating moments where you just wonder, okay, what's going on? What's happened here? Because I really thought that he had turned a corner last year, and yeah, another frustrating result.
Right, and I'm sure that's difficult for him. I think a lot of it is that mental aspect. Two guys from Penn State finished in the top 6. Cade Moss finished second, and Dom Giangeli from Franklin Regional, he finished in 5th at 141. So, I think in the room he's probably a different wrestler, but it's when you're getting out there, and I don't know if it's that. I mean, it's the second year up at 141. He lost to a tough Kyle Springer, who I think had a good tournament from Eastern Michigan. He won it at 141, but it'll be interesting to see how Jimmy comes back and bounces back from this and gets back on track. And I think, like I said, a lot of that is between the years there.
Yeah, Jimmy's always been. I know I had heard talk before that when he was in high school, he would legitimately ask his coaches, "Hey, do you think I can beat this guy?" And I mean, Jimmy was one of the best wrestlers that we've seen in decades. Just dominated, but he still had that question, of against an average kid, can I beat him? And I think it's just a different mindset than those top-level guys. I mean, I don't see Jason Nolf ever asking himself that, even against Imar. I think he's going out there and saying, all right, I'm going to beat this guy, and I'm going to be impressive doing it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that says a lot there. So I'm really hoping that Jimmy can bounce back and get back to the form that he's so good at. So another champion from Penn State that competed was at 197, Matt McCutcheon. He grinded out a 3-1 decision over Frank Mattis from Penn, and he was able to score with 4 seconds left in the match to come away with the championship at 197. So another guy who's up in a weight class this year, with Bo Nickel moving up to 184. Matt moved up to 197. Kellen Stout from Mount Lebanon, he finished 5th at 197. Joey Goodhart from Hempfield area. Just Hempfield, not Hempfield area. He is at Drexel now. He finished 3rd at heavyweight. So a lot of Pennsylvania guys competing here in the Keystone Classic. It's nice to see them do so well. Well, and it's a great event too. I wish I would have been able to get out there. I wasn't able to, but I mean, you get so many great Pennsylvania guys in the college ranks, and to have so many of them under one roof there competing in one event, really neat for the people of Pennsylvania. Yeah, and it's very good for us to come back and say, wow, look at all these guys that we saw in high school, maybe just a year ago. I mean, a lot of these guys are true freshmen, competing for their first or second time in a college singlet. So very impressive to see these guys doing well. And speaking of true freshmen, some guys that made some noise outside of the Keystone Classic last weekend. Hayden Hidley from NC State, he won the Wolfpack Open, which is a nice little win for him. And Luke Pletcher, this is the second time in 2 weeks that Luke Pletcher was able to come away with an open tournament. He won the Eastern Michigan Open at 133 pounds. So he's still one of the top guys in the nation, even though he's number 2 in that lineup. Yeah, obviously, whenever you've got a NATO there, it's pretty tough to break into the lineup. But Pletcher certainly has the talent to be one of the top guys in the nation, whether it's this year or the red shirt, and come back and have 4 more years to show what he can do in Columbus. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I think I said the Eastern Michigan. It was the Michigan State Open. And in the finals, he beat Corey Keener from Central Michigan, who's a fifth-year senior from Blue Mountain, who was a 2-time state champion himself from Pennsylvania. So between the two of them, they have 5 state championships, and Pletcher was able to come away with a 5-4 decision. Keener, I think, was number 20th in the nation ranked. He was an NCAA qualifier last year. So that just shows you where Luke is already on the path. So very, very nice to see him do well so early in his career. Yeah, definitely. And as I said, I think he's going to do really well there. It's just a matter of fitting all the puzzle pieces together when you've got so many talented guys in a room like Ohio State does. Yeah, and switching to Division II,
I believe you got some news, unfortunate news about Nick Roberts from North.
Yeah, a former Ohio State wrestler, as it turns out. Nick Roberts, who was a 3-time PIAA champion at North Star, and then went to Ohio State, was there a couple years, ended up at Pitt Johnstown last year, where he went on to win a Division II national title. Unfortunately, it looks like Nick's career is probably over. He's a senior this year and was looking to come back and defend his title, but in his first dual meet of the year, ended up re-injuring a knee that's been a problem since he's been 12 years old. He has a condition that has really been difficult for him to deal with over the years, and it flared up again and looks like it's going to end his career. He has a meeting with a doctor on Wednesday where he can get kind of a final word, but in talking with him, I sat down with him yesterday for about 20 minutes, and he basically told me that, he's come to grips with the fact that his career is over, and he's just looking to stay involved with the program, stay involved with the sport, wants to get into coaching. But yeah, kind of a difficult time for him right now. He's handling it pretty well, but I'm sure on the inside it's got to be really eating at him to know that it's probably over.
That's very difficult for a kid who's just really grinded his way through. I mean, I remember watching him at North Star and coming onto his own in the state of Pennsylvania, but then coming into Ohio State, and he was an NCAA qualifier for Ohio State, and had to wrestle with Tomasello. But if there's any good thing in this, he was able to come out and prove himself on the Division II level. He won a national championship last year. So, at least he does have that he was able to achieve that ultimate goal, that highest achievement to win that national championship. But, that's got to be tough for him.
Well, and the other good thing about it, and one of the things that we talked quite a bit about, and I talked with Coach PAP13 about, is that Nick has really grown up. I mean, for a while, wrestling was all there was. He was in college, but the academics were just to keep him eligible for wrestling. And since he's gotten to UPJ, he's really kind of changed that mindset. He's matured. He's realizing that the degree is really the important thing right now. And as much as he loves wrestling and really wanted to defend that national title, he knows that the biggest carrot is getting that degree and getting out of there in a position where he can have a good life ahead of him.
Yeah. Well, we wish him the best of luck to Nick Roberts and a speedy recovery, and hopefully, like you said, he stays involved in the sport. I'm sure he will, and I'm sure PAP13 is able to fill in that lineup with a lot of talented guys, and we'll be interested in see how they do this year.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I think they were really in the mix for a team national title. Now, you take out a national champion out of that lineup, and it obviously becomes much more difficult to do. But he does. He has good depth. He's got some young guys that are going to step in there, and it'll still be a very good team, but obviously not the same as whenever you lose a Nick Roberts.
Right. Well, that's going to do it here for us at the PA Power Podcast. Be sure to check out the top incoming freshman report. 106 of the top Pennsylvania wrestlers that are going to be freshmen this year are on that list. Be sure to check back. We'll be having state dual team rankings coming out in the next few days. So be on the lookout for state dual team rankings because it's right around the corner. Right, Eric?
Absolutely. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah, and we're already starting to compile our preseason rankings, so be on the lookout for those as well. And as always, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and be sure to give us a review on iTunes to subscribe to the PA Power Podcast.